Move, now. The sharp command sliced through the plush silence of Luxair Flight 2014's first-class cabin, where polished wood and soft leather promised luxury. David Coleman, a 43-year-old black tech CEO, froze in seat 3A, his laptop open for a keynote speech. Flight attendant Emily Harper loomed over him, her smile a thin veil over condescension, while Laura Hensley, a white woman in a designer coat, tapped her watch impatiently. "That's my seat," Laura snapped, her voice dripping with entitlement. Phones emerged, recording the spark of a confrontation that would ignite a firestorm, threatening to consume an airline. David Coleman's fingers hovered over his laptop, the glow of his presentation slides reflecting in his steady brown eyes. The first-class cabin of Luxair Flight 214, with its heated towels and champagne flutes, felt like a world apart from the Atlanta streets where he'd grown up. At 43, he was the CEO of Fairtech Innovations, a $3 billion zero-cents AI company, headed to deliver a keynote at the Global Tech Ethics Summit. He'd chosen seat 3A for its legroom, perfect for finalizing his speech. Earlier airport cameras had caught him tipping a barista generously and helping a lost elderly man to his gate. Small acts of kindness that defined him. But now Emily Harper's sharp demand hung in the air, and Laura Hensley's piercing gaze bore into him. The cabin's luxury seemed to mock the tension brewing. Passengers shifted, sensing a spectacle. David's calm voice cut through. "I'm a Diamond Elite member," he said, producing his membership card from a sleek wallet. "This is my assigned seat." Emily's smile tightened, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before it hardened. "I understand, sir, but this seat is reserved for our preferred Diamond Elite members," she said, gesturing to Laura. Her tone carried a sting. David didn't belong, no matter his status. Laura, her designer coat draped over one arm, stepped closer, her gold-trimmed handbag glinting. "I fly this route every week," she said loudly, ensuring nearby passengers heard. "That seat is practically mine." Her words dripped with entitlement, her impatience a performance for the cabin. A businessman in 2C nodded sympathetically, but a teenage girl in 4B frowned, whispering to her mother. The air grew heavy as passengers turned, some reaching for phones. Mia Torres, a young journalist in 3C, angled her device discreetly, her camera capturing Emily's rigid posture and Laura's theatrical watch-tapping. "This is ridiculous," Laura muttered, loud enough for all. Mia's lens zoomed in, sensing a story. David remained composed, his boarding pass in hand. "I booked this seat months ago," he said evenly. "I'm not moving." Emily's eyes narrowed, her politeness fraying. She glanced at Laura, who gave a subtle nod, as if orchestrating the scene. The cabin's hum seemed to fade, all eyes on the standoff. David's mind flashed to his roots. At 12, in a cramped Atlanta library, he taught himself coding on a second-hand computer, grief over his mother's death fueling his drive. She'd been a nurse, killed in a hit-and-run, her loss shaking his world. Standing at her grave, young David vowed to make the world fairer, to ensure people were seen for who they were. That promise led to Fairtech, built from a one-room apartment where he coded 20-hour days while delivering pizzas. Now, his AI helped companies eliminate bias, an irony not lost on him as Emily's words echoed. His success hadn't shielded him from this moment, but it had forged his resilience. Emily retreated to the galley, her heels clicking sharply. Mia's camera followed, catching a hushed exchange. Laura slipped a folded stack of bills into Emily's pocket, her whisper barely audible. "Handle this, please." Emily's face flushed, but she pocketed the cash with practiced ease. The bribe sent a chill through Mia, her fingers tightening on her phone. Back in the cabin, Emily returned, her tone sharper. "Sir, would you consider moving to another section?" she asked, implying a downgrade to economy. Laura loomed behind, her voice cutting in. "I have a critical deal after landing. This is my seat." David's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. "I chose this seat for work," he said, gesturing to his laptop. "I'm staying." The words landed like a gauntlet, challenging the unspoken hierarchy. Passengers murmured, some siding with Laura's privilege, others uneasy at the injustice. The teenage girl in 4B whispered loudly, "He's done nothing wrong." Her mother shushed her, but the comment rippled. Mia's footage captured every nuance. David's dignity, Emily's discomfort, Laura's smugness. The cabin felt like a powder keg. one spark away from explosion. Cabin supervisor Nathan Brooks strode down the aisle, his uniform crisp, his stride exuding authority. "Sir, you're disrupting boarding," he declared, loud enough for all to hear. His eyes flicked to Laura, who gave a satisfied nod. David met his gaze, unflinching. "I've shown my credentials," he said firmly. "This is my seat." Nathan leaned in, his voice low but menacing. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The threat hung heavy, passengers holding their breath. Mia's camera kept rolling, unaware that this moment would unravel an airline. David's calm masked a storm. Luxair had no idea who they'd just challenged. Have you ever been judged for how you looked? Share your story w/us in the comments. Type justice and your city to stand against prejudice. Nathan Brooks stood over David Coleman, his shadow falling across seat 3A. The first-class cabin of Luxair Flight 214, once a haven of luxury, now crackled with tension. Passengers watched, some with pity, others with disdain. David's calm eyes met Nathan's. "I've shown my boarding pass and Diamond Elite card," he said steadily. "I'm not moving." Nathan's jaw tightened, his voice dropping to a hiss. "You're making this a problem, sir." Laura Hensley, clutching her gold-trimmed handbag, nodded approvingly, her entitlement fueling the standoff. The teenage girl in 4B gripped her armrest, her eyes wide with indignation. Mia Torres, the journalist in 3C, kept her phone angled, recording every word. The cabin felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for David's next move. Nathan straightened, his tone loud for effect. "You're disrupting boarding," he announced, as if David were a troublemaker. "Move now or we escalate." Passengers murmured, divided. A businessman in 2C muttered, "He doesn't belong here." But the girl in 4B whispered to her mom, "This isn't fair." David's heart ached, not from the insult but from the familiarity. He'd faced this before, being judged before he could speak. Yet his mother's voice echoed in his mind. "Stand tall, David. Your worth isn't their verdict." He leaned forward, voice firm. "I paid for this seat. I'm staying." Mia's camera caught Nathan's sneer as he leaned closer, his words sharp. "Don't make this difficult," he warned, his tone a veiled threat. The cabin grew quieter, phones multiplying. The girl in 4B spoke up, her voice trembling. "He's done nothing wrong." Her outburst drew gasps, and Laura spun toward her, glaring. "Mind your own business," Laura snapped, her composure cracking. Nathan waved a hand dismissing the girl, but the tension spiked. Mia's footage captured David's steady gaze, a man unmoved by intimidation. Passengers shifted, some typing furiously, others whispering. The standoff was no longer private, it was a spectacle. Nathan retreated momentarily, conferring with Emily Harper near the galley. Their hushed voices didn't reach David, but Mia's camera did. Emily's face was pale, her hands fidgeting as Nathan muttered, "She's paying us to fix this." Laura's bribe had sealed their resolve. Back at David's seat, Nathan's demeanor hardened. "Last chance," he said, loud enough for all. "Move or we call the captain." David's expression didn't waver, but inside he felt the weight of every eye on him. He wasn't just fighting for a seat, he was fighting for dignity, for every person told they didn't belong. "I'm not moving," he repeated, each word deliberate. Captain's intervention. The cockpit door swung open, and Captain Robert Klein strode out, his weathered face set in a professional mask. His presence silenced the cabin, his pilot's stripes commanding respect. Emily and Nathan trailed behind, their confidence bolstered. Klein stopped beside David, towering over him. "Sir, my crew assigns seats for passenger comfort," he said, his voice firm but tinged with unease. "You need to move." David looked up, unflinching. "Captain, I'm in my assigned seat with a valid boarding pass. No policy requires me to give it up for someone's preference." His calm logic cut through the captain's authority, exposing the flimsy excuse. Klein hesitated, glancing at Nathan, who nodded eagerly. "He's causing a disturbance," Nathan interjected, his voice smug. Laura seized the moment, her voice rising dramatically. "This is outrageous!" she exclaimed, clutching her handbag. "I'll miss my deal because of him." Her performance drew sympathetic nods from some passengers, but others exchanged uneasy looks. The girl in 4B wiped a tear, her mother squeezing her hand. Mia's camera captured it all. Laura's theatrics, Nathan's smirk, David's quiet strength. The cabin was a tinderbox, and Klein's next words would light the match. "Move, or we call security," he said, his tone final. David reached for his phone, his movements deliberate. "I'm recording this," he said calmly, activating the camera. Nathan's face twisted with anger. "Recording isn't allowed," he snapped, lunging for the device. David pulled back, his voice steady. "There's no law against it unless it interferes with crew duties. I'm documenting this for my protection." The legal jab stunned Nathan, who retreated, red-faced. Passengers gasped, some nodding in approval. The businessman in 2C muttered, "He's pushing it too far," but the girl in 4B whispered, "He's right." Mia's footage caught Nathan's faltering composure, a crack in his authority. The cabin buzzed with anticipation. Klein's eyes narrowed, his patience thinning. "This is your final warning," he said, his voice cold. "Move or you're off this plane." David's heart pounded, but his face remained serene. He'd faced worse: job rejections, coded insults, the weight of being the only one in boardrooms. This wasn't about a seat anymore. It was about every time he'd been asked to shrink. "I'm not moving," he said, his voice a quiet thunder. Laura huffed, checking her watch theatrically. "This is beyond ridiculous," she declared, her voice echoing. Passengers shifted, some recording openly now, their phones a silent jury. Heavy footsteps echoed as 2 security officers boarded, their badges glinting under the cabin lights. The air grew thick, every sound amplified. Nathan pointed at David, his finger trembling with triumph. "Him," he said. The first officer, a burly man with a neutral expression, approached. "Sir, you need to leave," he said, his tone flat. David's eyes met his, searching for fairness. "Can you cite the policy I'm violating?" he asked, his voice measured. "I'm a Diamond Elite in my assigned seat." The officer hesitated, glancing at his partner, who shrugged. "You're causing a disturbance," the second officer said, dodging the question. David addressed Klein directly, his voice cutting through the pretense. "Am I being removed for refusing to give my seat to her?" He nodded toward Laura, who clutched her handbag tighter, her smugness faltering. Klein's face tightened. "You're disrupting the flight," he replied. But his words sounded hollow. The girl in 4B shouted, "He's done nothing!" Her mother pulled her close, but the outburst sparked murmurs. "I'm recording too!" called a man in 5A. Mia's camera trembled, capturing Laura's nervous glance. The cabin was alive with defiance, but security stood firm, their presence a wall David couldn't breach. With quiet dignity, David closed his laptop and gathered his belongings. As he stood, Laura slipped another bill into Nathan's pocket, her whisper audible to Mia's camera. "Thanks for keeping standards." The words landed like a slap, igniting outrage. The girl in 4B sobbed. "That's so wrong." A woman in 3D muttered, "This is disgusting." David walked down the aisle, his back straight, his head high. Passengers watched, some ashamed, others defiant. Mia's footage caught every detail: Laura's smug smile, Nathan's greedy nod, David's unwavering grace. The cabin's silence screamed louder than words. In the terminal, David's shoes echoed on the polished floor. Security trailed behind, their confidence fading. He pulled out his phone, dialing his COO, Sarah Gwynn. "Sarah, it's David," he said, his voice low but firm. "I've been removed from a Luxair flight for discriminatory reasons. Assemble the legal team." Mia approached, clutching her phone, her eyes blazing. "I recorded everything," she said, her voice shaking. "The bribe, the threats, all of it. This was wrong." David's expression softened, a spark of hope igniting. "Thank you," he said. "This could change everything." The fight was just beginning. What would you do in David's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments and type "justice" with your city to join the fight for fairness. David Coleman stood in the quiet airport lounge, his suit still crisp despite the humiliation on Luxair Flight 214. The terminal's bustle felt distant as he processed the sting of being escorted off the plane. Mia Torres, the journalist who'd recorded the ordeal, sent him the video, her email pinging on his phone. "This needs to be seen," she wrote. David's fingers trembled slightly as he watched the footage. Laura Hensley's bribe, Nathan Brooks' threats, his own calm defiance. His heart ached for every person who'd faced this without a voice. He forwarded the video to his COO, Sarah Gwynn, with a simple note: "Make this public." Within hours, the internet exploded, and Luxair's world began to crumble. By midday, Mia's video hit 3 million views, the hashtag #LuxairBias trending globally. Social media lit up with outrage. "This is disgusting," tweeted a pop star with 10 million followers. News anchors dissected the footage, zooming in on Laura slipping cash to Nathan. Passengers from the flight posted their own clips, amplifying the story. Luxair's stock plummeted 15%, each percentage point a blow to their polished image. In the first-class cabin, now airborne, Emily Harper served Laura champagne. Oblivious to the storm brewing below, Nathan pocketed his bribe, smirking, while Captain Robert Klein flew on, unaware their careers hung by a thread. At Luxair's sleek headquarters, CEO Thomas Bradley sat in his corner office, reviewing budgets. His phone buzzed urgently. "Sir, we have a crisis," his PR director Janet Cole said, her voice tight. "A video's gone viral showing a black passenger removed from Flight 214. The crew took bribes." Thomas's stomach dropped. "Send it to me," he barked. The footage played on his monitor. David's steady voice, Nathan's condescension, Laura's smug standards comment. Janet's next words hit harder. "The passenger is David Coleman, CEO of Fairtech Innovations. He owns 27% of our stock." Thomas slumped, the air leaving him. They'd humiliated their lifeline. Thomas's team gathered in a glass-walled conference room, screens flashing with social media metrics. The video was nearing 5 million views, and #LuxairBias trended above global events. "We're bleeding investors," the CFO warned, pointing to a plummeting stock graph. "Another 10% drop and we're in freefall." Thomas's mind raced. Luxair had been courting Fairtech's AI to modernize their outdated systems, a $60 million zero-cents deal to save their sinking customer service ratings. David wasn't just a passenger, he was their largest shareholder, holding the power to sink or save them. "Get me Coleman on the phone," Thomas ordered, his voice hoarse. Miles away, David's team assembled in the airport lounge, a makeshift war room. Sarah Gwynn arrived with their legal counsel Rachel Patel and PR head Melik Jones. Laptops hummed, phones buzzed with updates. "The video's at 7 million views," Melik reported, turning his screen. "CNN, BBC, and Al Jazeera are covering it. We're trending as Luxair's discrimination disaster." Sarah's eyes gleamed with resolve. "They didn't know they were targeting the one person who could dismantle them," she said. David nodded, his calm masking a fire. "Call an emergency shareholder meeting," he said. "Luxair's culture is rotten. We're exposing it." Rachel outlined their leverage. "Your 27% stake, combined with allied investors, gives you control," she said. "You can demand board action." David's thoughts drifted to his mother's grave, where he'd vowed to fight unfairness. This wasn't just about him, it was about the elderly woman shuffled aside at check-in, the young man profiled at security. His pain was theirs, and he'd turn it into change. Malik's phone pinged again. A passenger from 4B, the teenage girl, posted her video. It's corroborating Mia's. David's heart lifted. Ordinary people were rising, their voices amplifying his. Back on Flight 214, a crackle broke through the crew's earpieces. "Emergency meeting at HQ," an admin's voice said, sharp with panic. "You've made a catastrophic mistake." Emily's champagne tray wobbled, her face paling. Nathan's smirk vanished, his hand clutching the bribe in his pocket. Captain Klein gripped the yoke, unease creeping in. "What's going on?" Emily whispered. Nathan shook his head, but fear flickered in his eyes. On the ground, Thomas dialed David, his palms sweaty. "Mr. Coleman," he began, voice strained. "I'm horrified by this incident. How can we make this right?" David's reply was ice cold. "This isn't about apologies, Mr. Bradley. I'm calling a board meeting. Your airline's values are on trial." The boardroom at Luxair HQ buzzed with tension, executives shifting in leather chairs. David's arrival was electric, his suit unchanged from the flight, a silent rebuke. Sarah, Rachel, and Mia flanked him, the journalist's presence a surprise. Thomas dimmed the lights, Mia's video playing on a massive screen. The bribe drew gasps. Nathan's threats tightened jaws. David spoke, his voice steady but commanding. "This wasn't just about me," he said. "It's about every passenger treated as less than because of their skin, their clothes, their accent. As your largest shareholder, I demand two things: terminate the involved staff and cancel our tech partnership." Thomas stammered. "Mr. Coleman, suspensions might be more practical. Union rules." David cut him off, his gaze unflinching. "This isn't negotiable. Accountability or I pull my investment." A junior analyst burst in, panting, clutching a tablet. "Sir, our stock's down 20%, he blurted. "Analysts predict a 35% drop if Coleman exits." The room froze, executives exchanging panic glances. Thomas's face drained, the reality sinking in. David held their fate. A man they'd humiliated now controlled their future. Mia's eyes met David's, her quiet nod a shared vow. Justice was coming, and it would shake the world. The Luxair boardroom was a tomb of silence, the weight of David Coleman's ultimatum hanging heavy. His words, "Terminate the involved staff and cancel our tech partnership," echoed in CEO Thomas Bradley's ears. The viral video, still playing on loop in Thomas's mind, showed Laura Hensley's bribe and Nathan Brooks' threats. David's steady gaze met every executive's, a reminder of the man they'd humiliated on Flight 214. Outside, Luxair bias trended at 10 million views, and the stock teetered on collapse. David's 27% stake gave him power to end Luxair, but his heart sought change, not destruction. He thought of his mother's words, "Fairness isn't revenge, it's progress." The room waited, breathless, for Thomas's response. Thomas cleared his throat, his face pale. "Mr. Coleman, we'll act swiftly," he said, voice shaking. "The staff will be dealt with." David nodded, his expression unyielding. "I expect terminations, not suspensions, and I want a plan to fix your culture." The analyst's warning, a 35% stock drop if David pulled out, loomed like a guillotine. Executives shifted, their leather chairs creaking. Mia Torres, the journalist, sat quietly, her presence a testament to the power of one video. Sarah Gwen, David's COO, leaned forward, ready to enforce his demands. The tide had turned, and justice was rising. In a stark conference room 3 floors below, Emily Harper, Nathan Brooks, and Captain Robert Klein sat in uneasy silence. The HR director, Linda Voss, entered, flanked by 2 security officers. Their presence sent a chill through the room. "Your employment is terminated, effective immediately," Linda said, sliding 3 folders across the table. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Nathan's face twisted with rage. "This is absurd," he shouted. "We've followed protocol." Captain Klein closed his eyes, his weathered face aging a decade. Linda opened her laptop, Mia's video playing in crisp detail. Laura's cash, Nathan's threats, Emily's complicity. "Was bribery protocol?" Linda asked, her tone cutting. Nathan's defiance crumbled as the footage showed Laura's whisper, "Thanks for keeping standards." Emily's tears spilled, her voice breaking. "I knew it was wrong," she admitted. "I needed the tips to pay my rent." Klein's voice was hollow. "I trusted my crew. I failed to lead." Linda's expression softened but held firm. "The passenger was David Coleman, Fairtech's CEO and our largest shareholder. Your actions cost Luxair millions." The words landed like a punch, stripping away their excuses. Emily sobbed, Nathan stared blankly, and Klein's shoulders sagged. Their world had shattered in minutes, mirroring the humiliation they'd inflicted on David. Security stepped forward, their badges glinting. "Collect your belongings and follow us," one said. The trio stood, their footsteps heavy as they were escorted through the office. Employees whispered, some turning away, others staring in shock. "They're the ones from the video," a clerk muttered. Nathan's face burned, his earlier smugness gone. Emily wiped her tears, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Klein walked with the gait of a man who'd lost his purpose. The symmetry was stark. David's walk of shame down the aisle, now theirs. In the elevator, Emily's sob broke the silence. "We did this to ourselves," she whispered, her voice raw. The news spread like wildfire through Luxair's headquarters. In the main auditorium, 800 employees gathered, their murmurs filling the vast space. Thomas took the stage, David beside him, a powerful contrast to the chaos of Flight 214. "Today we failed a passenger," Thomas began, his voice heavy with shame. This wasn't one mistake. It was a symptom of a broken culture. He paused, meeting employees' eyes. "We're grounding all flights for 48 hours. Every employee will undergo Fairtex bias training starting tomorrow." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A 48-hour shutdown would cost millions, but it screamed commitment to change. David stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. "This isn't about punishing a few," he said, his voice clear and steady. "It's about ensuring no one feels less than because of who they are." His words hit hard, stirring memories of his own pain, being told he didn't belong, from classrooms to boardrooms. Employees leaned forward, some nodding, others tearful. A baggage handler in the back wiped his eyes, thinking of his daughter facing prejudice at school. A ticket agent clutched her notepad, ashamed of times she'd judged passengers. David's story wasn't just his, it was theirs too. The auditorium buzzed with a new resolve. Thomas outlined the plan. Fairtex training would be mandatory, from pilots to janitors. "We're rebuilding trust," he said. "This is our chance to lead the industry." Employees exchanged glances, some skeptical, others inspired. A flight attendant raised her hand. "Will this really change things?" she asked. David answered, his voice warm but firm. "Change starts with us. I'm here because I believe you can be better." His sincerity disarmed the room, planting seeds of hope. The shutdown was a gamble, but it was also a promise. A new luxceo was being born. Beyond the auditorium, consequences unfolded. Emily sat in her apartment, rejection emails piling up. "We've chosen another candidate," one read, but she knew the truth. Her face was infamous. At a job interview, a manager's eyes widened. "You're that flight attendant," he said, ending the meeting. Nathan faced the same wall, his applications ignored. Once a confident supervisor, he now avoided mirrors, unable to face his own shame. Captain Klein, with 30 years of flying, applied for desk jobs. But his name was toxic. "You failed to act," one recruiter said, echoing Klein's own regrets. Their careers were casualties of a single, shameful choice. Laura Hensley's world unraveled too. luxceo banned her for life, her Diamond Elite status revoked, her company placed her on leave, her actions splashed across headlines. Airline Laura trended, her smug smile a meme of entitlement. Alone in her penthouse, she watched news anchors dissect her behavior, friends ghosting her calls. For the first time, she felt the sting of being judged, her privilege no shield. Her reflection in the TV screen showed a stranger, someone who'd hurt another for a seat. The weight of her actions pressed down, forcing a painful question: who am I? At luxceo's training centers, conference rooms buzzed with activity. Fairtex program wasn't a checkbox exercise. It was raw, challenging. Employees faced simulations, role-playing scenarios of bias. A gate agent hesitated, admitting he'd favored VIP-looking passengers. A pilot shared how he'd ignored microaggressions in the cockpit. David led a session, standing before 50 employees. "I was you," he said, his voice steady. "I saw unfairness and stayed silent. Then I lost my mom to it. Don't wait for a tragedy to act." His words broke through defenses, tears flowing. A mechanic nodded, vowing to call out prejudice. Change was taking root, one heart at a time. 6 months after David Coleman's humiliation on luxceo Flight 214, the airline soared higher than ever. Passenger numbers climbed 15%, with travelers of all backgrounds praising the newfound fairness. luxceo's training, powered by Fairtex AI, had reshaped its culture, earning top industry scores for customer satisfaction. David's 27% stake, once a threat, stabilized the stock, his faith in change paying off. In a quiet Atlanta office, he reviewed progress reports, his mother's words echoing, "Fairness is progress." The pain of that day had sparked a revolution, but David's heart yearned for more. Not just accountability, but redemption for those who'd fallen. luxceo's transformation was visible everywhere. At gates, flight attendants smiled equally at every passenger, no matter their appearance. A black teenager in a hoodie, once eyed with suspicion, was offered a free snack, the crew's warmth genuine. A Latina grandmother, nervous about her first flight, was guided with patience. Passengers noticed the shift. "It's like everyone's treated the same now," a frequent flyer told a news crew. David's vision, born from his vow at his mother's grave, had taken root. Yet he knew true change wasn't just about systems. It was about giving people a chance to grow. On a rainy Tuesday, David stood at a podium in Luxair's auditorium, facing reporters and employees. "Today, I'm launching the Fair Start initiative," he announced, his voice steady. "It's for those who lost jobs due to bias incidents. They'll get training, counseling, and a path back to work." The crowd stirred, whispers rising. Then a shock. Among the first enrollees were Emily Harper, Nathan Brooks, and Captain Robert Klein. Gasps filled the room. David raised a hand. "Accountability isn't the end, it's the start. They're doing the work to change." His words, raw and hopeful, struck a chord, tears glinting in employees' eyes. The Fair Start program was grueling. Emily, Nathan, and Klein faced daily sessions, confronting their biases through fair tech simulations. Emily, once silent to save her job, shared her shame. "I saw David as less than because of his skin," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I'll never stay quiet again." Nathan, initially defensive, broke down in a group session. "I grew up hearing prejudice was normal," he said. "This program showed me how wrong I was." Klein, the oldest, struggled most. "I trusted rank over right," he confessed, his weathered face etched with regret. "I'm unlearning decades of mistakes." Their growth wasn't easy, but it was real. Emily earned a certificate, applying for ground crew jobs. A small airline hired her, the pay low, the hours long. "It's a start," she told a coworker, her eyes bright with purpose. Nathan landed a baggage handler role, his arrogance replaced by humility. "I'm not that guy anymore," he said, unloading bags in the rain. Klein, too old to fly, found purpose teaching in the program. "I failed David," he told trainees. "Don't fail others." Their certificates didn't erase the past, but they opened doors, proving redemption was possible through effort. In a private Luxair office, David sat across from Thomas Bradley, reviewing a 6-month report. Charts showed soaring metrics. Black, Hispanic, and Asian passengers reported equal treatment, a first in the industry. Thomas's face, once lined with panic, softened. "Your pain forced us to grow," he said, his voice thick. "Thank you." David nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "Change isn't comfortable, but it's worth it," he said. They shook hands, not friends, but partners in a new standard. Outside, employees trained, passengers boarded, and Luxair shone, a beacon of fairness born from one man's stamp. David's legacy stretched beyond Luxair. The Fair Start initiative grew, helping dozens find second chances. Other airlines adopted fair tech training, inspired by Luxair's turnaround. David's story, his pain, his courage, became a call to action. What would you do to make the world fairer? Stand up, speak out, give others a chance to grow. Type justice and your city in the comments and join the movement. Sometimes justice isn't about tearing down, it's about building up, one changed heart at a time. David's vow, made at his mother's grave, lived on, a light for all. David Coleman's story hits me hard because it shows how one moment of courage can change everything. I believe fairness isn't just a dream, it's a fight we all share, whether we've faced bias or witnessed it. Some might say the crew deserved harsher punishment, but I see hope in their redemption. People can grow if given the chance. Others might argue systemic change is too slow, and I get that frustration. Progress feels like a marathon, yet David's blend of justice and compassion inspires me to keep pushing. What's your take? Do you believe in second chances, or should consequences be final? Thank you for joining this journey. Your thoughts fuel these stories. Drop your opinion in the comments, type justice with your city, and subscribe to our channel for more tales of courage and change. Let's build a fairer world together.